This is the type of stuff we need to talk about on the podcast.
That
People were saying it was trash. People were saying his merch was demonic. People were saying, no, it's a cross. But it's like, it's an upside down cross, homie.
Right.
So
at that point, you have to ask yourself, are you able to separate the music from the artist?
My name's Evan. This is my co-host, Cole.
what's popping off?
I feel like I could be a Disney prince.
Cole just solved global warming right now.
Juice WRLD recently released a song, and he actually has passed away. I think Taylor Swift's overrated.
The #1 podcast on Mars. Welcome to Run the Culture. We are finally here. The #1 podcast on Mars.
Amen.
You think that's a good tag?
I think it's a good tag. Let us know in the comments. Is #1 podcast on Mars a good tag?
My name's Evan. This is my co-host, Cole.
I am Cole.
And you're finally listening to Run the Culture podcast. We have 2 guests with us, too. Gabby and Jon. Y'all want to introduce yourselves?
What's up? Gabby, you go first.
Hey, I'm Gabby. What's good?
Well, what do you do?
What do I do?
Yes.
Run the world.
Hey.
Next, just
Good
kidding. I'm
answer.
also the social media strategist.
Okay.
Let's
Jon?
go. Yeah, and I'm one of our Central Youth Directors. Shout out to our Ballantyne campus. Shout out to esports, Elevation Esports. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff here.
I mean,
crazy.
that's amazing. Speaking of the podcast, this podcast is sponsored by Tesla Motors. They heard we were going to Mars. They wanted to get on the inside.
Cap.
We already got Tesla?
I mean, first episode too.
That's crazy.
That's a great sponsor.
That's crazy.
Speaking of Tesla, though,
Uh-oh.
I hear Elon Musk is the richest man in the world.
You sure?
Yeah, he passed Jeff Bezos recently. Last Friday. Now he's the richest person in the world. I don't know exactly what that happens or like what goes into how much money is actually his, but for net worth's sake, Elon is the richest man in the world right now.
How much does he have?
I think like 190 billion. Is that right?
Yeah, something slight.
More than I have.
More than, you know what's crazy with that amount of money though? He could buy every single sports team in the United States, end world hunger, and buy every single person a house, and still have billions left.
Is that factual?
Oh, yes. It only takes like 2 billion to buy a sports team.
But what about world hunger?
Only 2 billion.
That's the part I'm stuck on.
Oh, world hunger? I don't, like $5. World hunger.
Yeah. I wonder how much it actually takes to end world hunger.
Somebody put in the comments, how much does it take to end world hunger?
And why haven't we done it yet?
I don't know. I'm sure that, you know what I've been thinking though?
What?
Like, who's
What you
paying
been
these
thinking about?
stimulus checks? Like, our kids going to be paying them? And their
What's
children?
the
you
U.S.
think that they're
government?
going to have us pay them back?
It's their children and their children.
100%.
We're already in debt, so it's like, why
But
not
who's
give
gonna
everyone
check-
free money?
Yeah, who's
Yeah.
coming for us? Who's coming to collect?
Who's coming to collect?
China.
China. Shoot. Our first podcast episode just got real deep.
Dang.
For real.
We just went worldwide right there.
Well, hey, I'm excited this being our first episode. And we've
Yeah.
been talking about this for a long time. Everyone who's been following the journey knows we've been wanting to do this for a minute.
Yeah.
Sometimes good things
Take time.
Take time.
Take time to develop.
My favorite part about what we'll be doing on this podcast is bringing not breaking news, because Pastor Stephen once said that breaking news is exactly that. It's news that just keeps breaking us. But we're going to try to be on the cusp of what's happening like this week.
Yep.
What's popping off, what happened this week. Like, I remember we had a good convo, like when Playboi Carti dropped his new album, like, this is the type of stuff we need to talk about on the podcast.
That
People
is
were saying
stuff-
it was
kind of
trash.
stuff that we need to talk
People
about.
were saying his merch was demonic. People were saying, no,
Well-
it's a cross. But it's like, it's an upside down cross,
upside down.
homie.
Right.
So
It's kind of scary.
I mean, at that point, you have to ask yourself, are you able to separate the music from the artist?
no.
And are you able to separate like the artist from their merchandise?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think that's the draw, is
I
their
think you-
celebrity endorsement.
I think you could with someone who makes movies. What I
Yeah.
mean by that is like a director could direct a scary movie or a negative movie, but it would be on purpose saying, I'm trying to tell this story. But I feel like a musician, I could be wrong. I'm not a musician or a movie director, but it feels like what they put out is the full expression of their heart, like their identity.
Yeah. And then it also, he knows his market crowd.
Yup.
And he knows the age of the kids who would be listening to his music. So I feel like when you have that much power and that much influence on a generation like that, you have to be mindful.
Right.
That's fair.
Just play it safe, because kids, they think it's a joke, and next thing you know, they're on like the deep dark web watching some man in his room doing satanic rituals.
Hey, boy. But
No,
that's why we out here
That is why
trying to
we are.
run the culture.
Dang. Wait, for those who don't know though, what is the Playboi Carti merch issue?
It's like very satanic, upside
super
down
dark.
cross, very dark. You would just have to look it up with I'm not saying look it up, but if you would like to look it up and then see what it would look like, then you would see.
Hey,
it's not good.
And Playboi Carti, we ain't judging you, bro. Like, come on the show. Like, let's talk about it. Like, we're just saying, like, we need to have some. I love what you said, Cole. I think people just we need to be able to have conversations about some of this stuff. Like, we need to think about what we're putting in our mind and in our bodies.
So
I feel like, though, to play devil's advocate, which I haven't seen the merch. So I don't know.
The devil's advocate?
Right.
Devil's advocate.
See.
Sold your soul. Sold your soul to be famous.
That's even my point, though. It's a figure of speech. But, like, something like 666, like, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like, I feel like we have put that label on it.
Okay.
That's
Here's
fair,
the
to a
merchandise.
Yeah, like, it's kind of got other vibes, too. Like, people in white cloaks and stuff like that isn't my favorite thing to be wearing.
I don't really. But the great thing is, I lead an e-group.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All of the guys in my e-group, they were talking about this for 2 days. They were talking about how you can separate the music from the artist.
Maybe that's his goal.
Is to
People
what?
are
To
talking
spark
about it.
conversations? I don't even think
It's
that.
controversial.
I feel like that's how things go viral, though.
I'm glad
Is
you're
the
playing.
beat
I feel like you
controversial?
have to see it.
I
That's
don't-
culture. It's constantly living on the edge between like acceptable and not acceptable. That's where fashion thrives.
Dang.
So
Wow.
I'm
That's
all
a
about
bar.
creating conversation. My question then would be, what is your desired end goal for creating conversation? Because creating conversation in and of itself it has no inherent moral value. Creating conversation that leads people towards better conclusions about their world and about themselves.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Like,
I think
just to be controversial is not a value. Like, 'cause that could actually be chaotic and disruptive. And I feel like we got mad people like that in our world.
I don't know Playboi Carti personally, but I do not think that he was intentional enough to make this merch to spark conversations. But I do think now within the age that we are coming with, that people are doing stuff strategically to spark conversations.
Okay.
And I think that is good.
Well, see, and then him talking or him doing this, it's easy for people to say, well, that's overtly satanic.
Yes.
But here's what I'm passionate about. Just because you put the word Jesus on merch don't mean that it's inherently Christian, though.
Talk
or
about that.
That's
Christ-like.
true.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
feel like we live in a world who's like, oh, I'm a Christian artist. And yeah, but your music is bad. Like, so actually, like, you shouldn't represent Christ because you're bad. Like, and again, it's a subjective opinion. But I think just because you put Jesus' name on something doesn't mean that would line up with his values. So I feel like on the other side,
Just because you don't put Jesus on something, it doesn't. Like, it's a flip, yin and yang. I feel like people, like, it's just like either this or that, and people don't see, like, the or. Like, the black or white, there's gray on most things.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, back to your question about what is the goal of conversation, I would say it's connection. Even if you don't come to the same conclusion, I feel like there's still
conclusion.
connection to be made in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a skill that people are forgetting to learn because, like, I enjoy having good conversations with people from all types of backgrounds, all different types of beliefs, but I don't enjoy having conversations when somebody would discredit somebody because of their background or their belief. Like, somebody finds out your views on something, and then they're like, I'm going to discredit you.
I'm going to shut you down on every issue because of how you feel about on this one issue.
That's
yes.
fair.
And I personally,
I hate that too.
I think that's very ignorant.
Yeah.
I feel like if we can have a conversation about it and I can see your character, then I can definitely look past some of your stupid choices.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it reveals things too. It reveals how you think. It reveals your bias.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's a lot more to be learned than just maybe the conclusion of the conversation too.
Yeah.
Like, you can get a greater understanding of yourself too, of like,
For sure.
actually I am kind of hypocritical in this area or whatever.
And also, it plays a lot with how you were brought up. Me personally, I was brought up in Baltimore City, which is not the greatest place, by a single mother. So my viewpoints are definitely going to be extremely different from yours or maybe even Gabby's because of how we were brought up.
Right.
Yeah, so I
But
think...
that's like the necessary thing.
Yeah.
I just think...
Like, I can't just surround myself with people like-minded.
Yeah.
And I just think we have to choose our battles because I'm like, okay, so there's so many issues in our world to be having conversations about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like be controversial in the right direction. Like,
Yes.
dog, like do something controversial that points people to a needed conclusion. I don't know that our world needs to conclude what does an upside down cross mean. I feel like we need to be talking about even what you said. Like, that's a great conversation. Like, why do people who think differently we live in a
come
world
together.
who says that they shouldn't. And I'll tell y'all what, like, since I had a kid, my daughter is, for those listening, she's 1.5. Her name is Selah. It has just changed. It literally, you do start getting like angry parent vibes because you're just like, I don't want my daughter to, like, here's a hot take, bro. I think it's irresponsible in an age of anxiety for people to create horror movies. And I think it's unwise for most people to watch them.
Dang.
I feel like
Because
also,
it's in the same way that to an alcoholic, alcohol would be like detrimental to your system, right? I'm like, if you struggle with depression and anxiety, which statistically, whether medically or like just experientially, many of us do, why are we creating art that is centered around dark things? That just, I'm not even saying like how my parents, that I feel like we've talked before, like all of our parents were kind of like, you can't watch this, you can't watch that, you know, like I'm not even coming at it with that energy, like, bro, watch Pokemon, the Power Rangers are fine, like,
this is the Waverly Place, watch that.
But like an example, I always bring this up, the movie, what's the one with John Krasinski, Quiet Place?
Yeah.
That is a scary movie, but it has so much redemptive themes and beautiful like stuff in it. But movies about demon clowns and all that stuff, I'm like, that's just freaking people out for no reason.
I also,
But how, I agree with you.
yeah.
But how far do you take that? Because even a show like Stranger Things has some demonic vibes in it.
Yep.
But I think there's also that argument that, well, why shut down all horror movies? Because there are some people that maybe don't experience as much anxiety.
Yeah.
Who, do enjoy the thrill of a movie like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also but to support your claim, I feel like I would even go as far to say as playing video games.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can be detrimental to you.
I was just talking to somebody,
for some
another
people.
youth pastor was asking us about Elevation Esports, and they asked us about how we play Call of Duty. And that's something that Gina's actually brought up just in a good conversation, being like, hey, is it smart to like play this game? And I thought about it, and like there's a lot to it, but one thing on that note is I was like, well, to be honest, like I want us to have the sensitivity as a youth ministry to know like when certain stuff pops off in our country, or like if we or even like let's say like in our community, right? So if in Chicago this weekend there was a mass shooting, like I believe 4 people were shot and killed that affected the community. It was in a kind of public way.
That was your hometown, right?
Yeah, I was like near Rockford, Illinois. Shout out M15. M15 to there. But I'm like, I would hope that we'd have the sensitivity to know, hey, this should be a week where we probably don't play a game with realistic gun violence.
Right.
Because I think your point is great. It's not about canceling something. I think it's about teaching people, I don't know the word.
Awareness?
I think it's responsible stewardship.
Yeah.
Like we have access and we have influence and wielding those well. And on the topic of like art stuff, I feel like to a degree, I'm on the opposite side because I love horror and I love thrillers.
Yes.
And also have anxiety and depression.
Okay,
which
talk
is
about it.
an interesting combination. But I feel like art is cathartic in that way. Like if you're experiencing inner turmoil, to see it outside of yourself is like, oh, it's nice to not feel alone in that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I don't think every single horror movie is like something you should show a young child.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like when you go to a museum and something is like stirred within you when you look at a painting, I feel like it's the same with movies. And there's the saying that like art imitates life. And so I think that's why people gravitate towards like action movies or yada yada. It makes you feel something.
Yeah.
And even if it's not like the best feeling, I think sometimes to like at least feel something at all in a world where we're constantly overloaded is like exhilarating and kind of I don't know, necessary in a way. I think small doses, like don't go ham and like binge watch scary, creepy YouTube videos and then you're like wired and you can't sleep and you're hallucinating. But at the same time, like I think there's a line to toe.
Well, that makes me think about, I think, some of the interesting tensions like in our church, in our youth ministry, where we do talk a lot. Our pastor does, our youth ministry does, about the potential like dangers of social media. Yet we're posting like crazy. So it's not like we're saying don't do it. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I've heard pastor talk. Apparently, he met with his team one time, and he was like, "Do we even need to be on social media? Do we just like cut this whole thing?" And kind of the conclusion they came to is like, no, we want to be a good voice in the midst of all this other noise.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't know if that's probably the same, goal for us. Maybe Gabby could speak to that more. But I think even just that self-awareness piece of, it's crazy how social media kind of has like a delayed reaction.
Yeah.
Like you can be on social media and then it's like hours later that you realize that it was the comparison or, just the mind-numbing nature of just consuming, trying to get a dopamine hit or whatever, that then causes you to lose your energy or whatever.
Well,
I actually like feel that on the front end. I don't even enjoy being on social media. I go on Instagram and then I like view people's stories and I'm like, I honestly like don't care if I post. Like I have 5 posts on Instagram right now. I don't care if I post. I don't care if people see my story. I post stuff and I'm like, you know what? Why did I don't even care if people see my life. Like anybody who I genuinely care to see my life, they're in it.
Right.
That's how I feel like too.
So then I get on there and then I'm like, this is gross. Like I know they're not living like that. I know that they're not really happy.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, you know what? Instagram's fake. Then I go on TikTok and I'm like, oh, that's a funny video. Oh, that's a sad video. And then TikTok has me feel so many emotions at once to where I delete TikTok once a month.
Yeah.
And then I download it again because somebody in the work group chat sends a TikTok. They're like, oh, this is what we need to be doing. And I'm like, you know what? Let me download TikTok just so I can see it. And then I get into this cycle of I'm deleting it and then I'm re-downloading it and then I'm watching it. And then I'm like, I'm feeling bad because I'm like, why is all of this stuff on my feed?
Yeah.
So I delete it again. And then the cycle continues to happen. And I knowingly put myself inside of it. And I don't know why we paint ourselves like this.
I was just about to ask.
I think we should have people, if you're listening and watching, put in the comments, like, what are your thoughts and feels about social media lately? What platforms do you love? What do you hate? Like, what is just? I think it'd be great. We can read some of it next week too. I think what's so funny, the number one time where people in my life try to convince me to get off social media, people in my life or people that follow me on social media, is always around when something involving social justice happens in our nation.
They want you to get off then?
That's the most consistent time where someone will be like, is this even making a difference? And it's just so funny because I'm like, I don't know if it's making a difference for thousands of people, but I know that when you share positive things, you speak out against injustice,
right.
You invite someone to experience a rhythm night, you post a Bible verse, I know it means something to at least 2 people.
Right.
And I think that's why I keep doing, like, honestly, like, that's what I weigh out. I'm like, because I'm not in a place where I think like Pastor Stephen and in our church and even like Tim and David, like Tiffany, like they're in a whole different realm of like when they post something, the amount of people see it. Yeah. I'm not in that, but I'm like, hey, I'm like, even if it's just for two people, I think it matters. I think I've gotten feedback of like, as a white man, I have helped shape for some people, again, not hundreds, but maybe 10 other white men on how to interact with issues of race. I think that's wildly important that I've gotten that feedback.
That is important.
And even though it's only 10,
that's
like
10 more.
That's what I was just about to say.
Like that 10 people, you're changing generations. And I felt like I had something to say, and as soon as I said it left my brain. I'm so sorry.
I think it's key, like what you just said, because you have to think about, I remember Noah, my husband, we were at the Dream Center in Tampa, and one of the younger kids came by and asked Noah, who's white, my husband's white, asked him if he was a police officer. And that was their only interaction with white people, like white males, is that they perceived that they were police officers.
Wow.
And so I think it's key to see like white people talking about issues of race and talking about social justice, because depending on where you come from, that's not typical. And to see that someone who's in the majority cares about what's happening to the minority, like that's huge. And I thankfully have been in spaces where I feel like I see more people like taking up like arms for other folks on their behalf and stuff like that and leveraging their influence. But that's not everyone's case. Yeah. And to like be Black in America and living in different pockets of suburbs and stuff like that, like sometimes your only interaction with people that don't look like you is on the internet. Yeah. So to see someone who you've never met care about something that's happening to you, like that shifts your whole worldview. Right. Like to think that someone who isn't being pressed by the same issues that are pressing you cares enough to like say something publicly. Like that hits different than like, oh, I'm praying for you, or oh, let me text you and like see how you're doing because this and this popped off. I mean, that's what inspires me about our youth ministry is like there's not millions of us yet, so we don't have the influence of millions in our youth ministry.
But if every single person that's a part of Elevation Youth understood their influence to impact 3 people, to share a link, you know, like even this very conversation we're having, if we just leave it to the algorithm of YouTube and Instagram, you know, a few thousand people will listen to it. Mm-hmm. But if people listening to this realize that if there's someone they think of that this could help them, maybe make them laugh, help, like inspire them, get them connected to youth ministry, we just took our reach from the thousands to the tens of thousands. Mm-hmm. Not because of ads, not because of algorithms, but because people believe in something. Like, that's why I can't get off social media.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, I agree. But like this weekend, Pastor preached on why do we crave what hurts us? Oof. And in a sense, I know that there are aspects of social media that are hurtful. So I'm like, I use it when I have to, but when I don't, it is what it is. But on the topic of people that we are reaching, I would love our reach to be great. Like I want kids who maybe not even like go to Elevation, don't even know what an e-group is. I want them to be listening to our podcast because I want them to be like, you know what? I may not know who this church is. I may not know who these people are, but they're talking about content that I enjoy. They're talking about things that I like are happening in the world. And it's a nice podcast. Mm-hmm. Like I want people to be able to feel like they can share this with their friends. So if like you're right now and you're like, I'm enjoying this, go ahead and share it. Yeah. So that, cause there's something in this that somebody, you know, would like to hear.
For sure.
And I think like that's one of the things we're most excited about this part of our YouTube channel and this podcast is like, we're going to talk about what's happening in the world. So like, regardless of where you are with Jesus, like we'll hope that this is some like hot takes and like fresh info. Yeah. Should we read our news articles? Should we hit that?
Yeah. We can go back to Mars where we started.
Yeah.
Hey. I read an article this week talking about how that there is a possibility that we can find a way to get air on Mars.
Oh, they're telling us what we already knew.
But how does that work?
Yeah. How does it work?
That's what I want to know.
There would be some type of rover that goes to Mars that would be able to take the gas that is on Mars and convert it into breathable oxygen. Which I think is crazy that we would even have the technology to do something like that. But could you imagine like going back? Everything goes back to Elon Musk.
Everything.
Every single
it's
thing.
All interconnected.
The crazy thing is Elon Musk. If Elon Musk goes to Mars first, he has enough money to where he can own a planet. Like he can own Mars.
Oh, okay, but
establish his own civilization there.
That's crazy.
But regardless of money, isn't whoever gets there first just own it? Like,
yeah, I mean,
who's trying to lay claim? Like,
it doesn't like
whoever
you don't
gets there
know
first.
Who has ownership on Mars? There's
I'm
nobody
saying whoever
there.
Gets there first.
Well, let's be honest. Mars is an absolute wasteland.
Yeah,
there's
as of now.
As of now, right?
Until we.
But if he goes there by himself, we're like, yeah, you can have it. Like you're gonna die on Mars.
Yeah,
that's what we think.
I think it's deceiving how difficult it would be to get to Mars too.
Dude, I was gonna bring that up because doesn't take as long.
No, I'm saying it is way tougher.
Oh, it is way tougher.
I'm saying.
Why do you feel that way?
Because there are so many like little factors that could absolutely wipe out every chance that we take to get to Mars.
Is there any radiation by the moon?
The radiation, first of all, is that whole flight, which is at best case 4 months.
From here to Mars.
That would be if we come up with some new propulsion technology.
Wow.
That could get us there faster. Right now, it's like over years. So you're being exposed, because on Earth, we have the ozone layer that would block us from radiation. So who knows what it'd be like.
But you know that when you have...
Second of all, the longest person to ever be in space was 100 days. When they came back to Earth, they couldn't even stand up. So how?
But you lose bone density when you're in space.
Because of the low gravity, right?
Yeah.
So how are these astronauts
But wouldn't they go in a spaceship that would have simulated gravity? Wouldn't that be part of the plan?
But then wouldn't your introduction to the atmosphere of the planet you land on be even more jostling?
Dang, bro.
Because you don't have that.
I mean, that is true. Like, if we're even questioning, does Mars have oxygen? That's in and of itself. Isn't that the main problem? Like,
that's like square
even
one.
beyond getting there.
It has oxygen.
If we can create oxygen on there,
there's water on Mars.
We can go ahead and create an artificial ozone layer on Mars. Yeah. So that would take away the radiation aspect, because I just looked it up, and it says that ozone layers are created with oxygen and O3 molecules.
Bro, I'm just thinking of some people who would be like, we can't go to Mars because Jesus is gonna come back before then, and it's just like, bro, I could see us on Mars, bro.
If Jesus didn't want us to go on Mars, he would not have allowed us to create the technology.
Ooh.
Do you think?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Free will involved there, though.
In what's it say in the end times, after God renews the earth, that the saints will rule the universe. Who's to say we won't have planets that we? It's gonna be full on.
I did just see an article that there was a new galaxy that was seen in the distance, like from astrologists.
You mean a galaxy far, far
away?
Straight up.
This dude is such a Star Wars nerd.
You know what's crazy though? A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, the way that time works, when we're seeing that galaxy,
it could be
how
gone
far
already.
it could be gone. Isn't that crazy? So it could be
Weird.
happening and not happening at the same time.
Eventually, if we move fast, if we can get to the galaxy, by the time we get there, we would have went back in time to where we initially saw it. That's
Excuse me?
Like it gets weird when you start thinking about stuff like that. But you know who has the answers?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ and Elon Musk.
And Joe
I knew
Rogan.
you were gonna say Elon Musk.
Joe Rogan too.
Joe Rogan does not have
But
the
time is
answers.
relative.
I think Beyonce.
Time
has the
is
answers,
relative.
too.
Especially to God.
I had an article, the National Football Championships, right? College. I don't know much about college football, but like the big game happened this last Monday. So when you guys are listening to this, like a week ago, and the Alabama Crimson Tide won. They win like all the time. Which is
like
when
every
Clemson
year.
doesn't
Good,
win,
aren't
they do win.
So I was like, what are they doing that no one else is doing? And just they did an article on their coach, a couple of things that were just interesting. Nick Saban is his name. So you either really love Nick Saban or you hate him. But one thing they said is that one of the writers, one of ESPN's top writers, he was saying that Nick Saban, he like shadowed him. He has the ability to coach any of the individual positions. Like that as a head coach, he's not just managing things at a big level, but he has the knowledge of what each position needs.
Wow.
And I was like,
Dang.
I don't even know how you do.
That's a
I don't know.
sermon.
That's
I don't know how you
funny
do that.
because I would say that about Tim.
Oh, talk about it.
Chill.
Well, he started out as the a youth director at Matthews or Matthews campus. Then he became the social media creative pastor.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now he's over everything. So he knows.
Is Tim Nick Saban?
He knows all the pieces. And he used to be a graphic
I've never seen them
designer.
in the both. I've never seen them both. in
And
the
you
same room.
know who I could even say that about as well?
Who?
Pastor Steven.
Oh, yeah.
He started as a youth pastor. Then he went ahead and he said he was preaching to empty rooms, which is kind of like what happened during Corona.
Yep.
And he's a worship
Yo.
leader.
And now,
Worship
and he
leader,
was a
yep.
worship leader.
Songwriter.
Everything in this pastor's life has led him to the moment to where he is right now.
And I think that's interesting about our lives, right? Like we live in I'm glad that we live in a world now that's helping kids realize, hey, find a vision for your life. You have some gifts. Here's your Enneagram number, da-da-da. But I think if we're not
I
careful,
think Enneagram is a hoax.
we're going
Hot
to,
take.
we can't even like, put in the comments what you think about the Enneagram. We'll maybe
If
talk
you
about
want,
it next
we'll
week.
have an episode
We'll hit
about
that next
Enneagram.
week.
I really think it's a hoax. Like you cannot go ahead and be like, you know what, I'm a 8, and that's why the sun sets and
You're
God
not supposed
allows
to
me
live
to
and
walk.
die by your
Like
Enneagram number.
You're right, man.
But people do-
psychology is a myth, man. There's no way that there are commonalities that exist across the human species
sure
that have
that
been
there are
studied over hundreds of years that are backed up by
I don't
science
believe
and
it.
Enneagram is
Second.
not 100 years old. First of all,
yes,
She might be.
yeah, it is.
They're saying that it was
It's derived from
Hebrew.
ancient monks. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it has
Derived
deep
from-
roots.
It's me.
I'm gonna be
I'm the ancient
honest.
monk.
If that is the case, then 100 years from now we can have a whole new Enneagram. Like people are
Why
just
not?
making generalizations. Oh,
Wait, are you talking
you
about
like to-
evolution, dude?
generalization.
I think-
you like things to be a certain way. Oh, you're a perfectionist. You like to win. You're an achiever.
But
You
I
like
think-
to be by yourself.
Dang,
Like
we
you know
just
what?
hit some energy with Cole.
It's just because Enneagrams are different based on your trauma. I didn't have a dad growing up, so
trauma.
that's why I don't like being emotional.
I 100% agree with that.
But I also
think
like to
there's
achieve.
nature.
We got to
There's-
get Tori and Kayla on.
Yeah.
There's nature and there's nurture, right?
Period.
So like you
That's
are
true.
born with certain gifts and predispositions, but things like growing up without a dad does
No, I 100%
does
agree.
affect it.
What were you saying though? What was the point that you were making?
Oh, what I was saying is like I also hope that as people we realize you have to go through grind seasons. Like, hey, like I believe in you that you could be a rapper, but like don't be above working at Chick-fil-A and learning how to manage people
You
and
gotta
manage your
start
money.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And I just think like what
Well-
stood out to me about that, and even like I loved your analogy of Pastor Steven and of Tim of going, I think it's maybe you don't live as a jack of all trades, but especially when you're young, it's good to get your hands dirty and learn how to do a bunch of different
That's what I
stuff.
was going to ask, because do you think it's more helpful for a youth to try a bunch of new things and to widen their skill set and their talents, or is it better to focus in on one and really develop one talent that could really be useful for them?
I have an answer.
Okay, let's hear it. Cole.
I was not good when I was a youth. I was not good at many things except one thing, which was serving at church. But that didn't mean that I didn't close other doors. Like serving at church.
Well, that's
was
not a
just
skill. What do you mean by that?
Like I was not good at football. I mean, I was kind of good at like ultimate frisbee. But outside of that, I mean, I did decent in school. Nothing I really excelled in except serving in church. It was very weird. I came to church. They were like, "Oh my gosh, Cole. You're a great server. Let's make you a leader. Let's make you like." I just excelled in serving in church. That was the first thing to where I ever saw.
What does that mean though? You were good at connecting with people.
I was good at connecting with people.
great.
Like I don't really know how to describe it. I was good at connecting with people. I was good with creating relationships, and that was the first thing in my life to where I really saw thriving. And I was like, you know what? Maybe being in the church is where I see myself a long time in my life.
Because it gave you a leadership outlet. That's one of your primary gifts.
Well, I think you're talking too about how your skill aligned with your passion of reaching people, felt the significance there, but then you also had skills to back it up.
I didn't even realize that it was my passion until I realized that I was good at it, though.
Which I think is why you should try a lot of different stuff.
I think so too.
And I do
try a
think
lot, though.
your passions, I think we always, like, we tell people, like, try to, like, line your passion up with your career. I think that's important. I think that's good. I think you should try to. But on one hand, like, you're going to have some passions that you're just bad at, but that doesn't mean that they still can't be passions.
Yeah.
Or that you're not great at. Like, I don't know. I think I think our world was on one end of the pendulum of like, go to college, be a dentist, and who cares if you like it, make money. You know, now we're like, do whatever you want. But I'm like, I feel like it's somewhere in the middle, you know, of just like, provide for your family. Like, if you chasing your passion holistically jeopardizes your ability to provide for your family, I don't know if that's God's best for you. Right? Like,
I don't think God calls us like, chase your dreams, but be smart.
Yeah.
You know, like, don't be like, you know what, God really wants me to be a rapper, so I'm going to drop out of school and devote all my time to God didn't tell you to do that. He did not say that. Some people it works out. And some people God really did tell. But if, like, you have a good life, you have, like, a 3.5 GPA, and you have 2 credits away from graduating, and you're like, God told me to, I'm a rapper now. No, just wait till
one time, Pastor Stephen, it was recently, I feel like it was in the, I think it was in his message, Momentum of a Decision. He's talking about doing something dumb for God.
Yeah.
I feel like he, in the way that he does, he didn't really leave us off with an answer. He's like, do something dumb for God. But then he's like, but don't just quit your job, but do something dumb. And I feel like really it's about getting clarity from God. Because I think God could call someone to do something crazy like that. I mean, people move across my wife and I moved. We left the place we had been for 10 years. You know, like Tyler, one of our videographers, left everything he knew in Arizona to come here. So I do think there is something. Sometimes we do dumb things. Do dumb things for God. I want to hear. Hey, we're coming up on time. I want to hear Gabby's article.
All right. So here's the hot take. It's not really a hot take. Madam Vice President elect. I mean, I guess until the inauguration.
As of this recording.
Yes. Kamala Harris was on the cover of Vogue, and there was instant controversy about it because of the way that she was styled and because of the way that it was photographed. And Anna Wintour, who like is the head of Vogue, issued an apology, but Vogue has had like a long-standing history of poorly editing Black people on the cover. And so it's not anything new necessarily.
And what is poorly
like,
editing?
They like make them seem way lighter than they are, or they have horrible lighting for African Americans. It's just like, I don't know if who this falls on, but I do think I know the solution. If you have people of the demographic of which you are trying to use to get your product out inside of leadership at your workplace, then this would no longer be an issue. Like, if empower somebody who is African American, who know what it's like to be African American, then you wouldn't I don't think they're consciously doing this stuff on purpose.
Right.
But if I train elephants all day, and then magically y'all want me to go train iguanas, I'm going to train the iguanas like I train elephants.
Right. Iguanas need to be in the thumbnail.
I'm trying to figure out the
I'm not going to know how to switch to train elephants from iguanas in that instant.
Right.
So people are used to, like, most artists, most people who are on Vogue are of the Caucasian race. So they're used to being able to edit photos that way or style them that way. But if it was like more diverse workplace, more diverse covers, then they would be educated to know this does not work for African American. And it's not bad that they don't know. I mean, it is bad that they don't know this, but it's not bad to ask for help. Just be like, hey, we need to know how to best cater to you.
Well, what's your take, Gabby? Why do you think?
Well, I think it speaks to like representation. I started reading a book called White Fragility, and the author talks about how like a lack of diversity points to a lack of perspectives in the workplace.
Wow.
And I think that's exactly what happened historically at Vogue. It's not that they inherently, like, that they were like, you know what, today we're just going to mess up all the black people. Like, I don't think it was that intentional. But I think, like, in Anna Wintour's apology, she was like, we historically have not hired enough black editors, black photographers, black this, that, and the third. So it's like, if you know that that's a miss on your part, then over 30 years, you didn't think to, like, do something about it.
Yeah.
You're telling me that 30 years went by and you're like, oops, guess we never got around to that on our to-do list. Like, there's got to be, from a leadership perspective, you have to be more intentional about the way that you're caring for the people in your care. And, like, if you care enough to put them on a cover, then you should care enough to know that someone's going to edit this picture, and the person who's editing this picture also has to have the care and intention that we have to put them on the cover.
Well, and I think, I think what you said, Cole, was like, you said empower. Because I feel like, is year 2021. I think most major companies know diversity matters, but if you diversify without empowerment, it still doesn't matter. So I wonder if Vogue might have diversified their staff, but they're not up the command chain putting either people of color or women in spots where they can not only be there but say, yo. Like, because there must be, whenever something like that happens, I think of the thousands of people at a company that size, like, that this must have gone before for it to get there.
Exactly.
And either the people that saw it didn't have the power to stop it, or the people that saw it didn't see it. Otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten out.
Or they didn't feel empowered enough to, like, say something about it. Like,
sometimes
if they felt like
you just got to catch the thorn. Sometimes you just got to catch the thorn. And it's okay for, like, the thorn to be caught a couple times, but the thorn's been caught too many times.
30 years.
Yeah, so like now
the same one.
y'all see the thorn. Go ahead and get some shears to cut the thorn so we can make this problem non-existent.
I think also it's like an access thing. Vogue is like a household name. They've been around the block for a hot minute. So, like, y'all could just call up Google, call up whoever, and probably get more. It's not like there's a deficit of black creatives anywhere. It really just speaks to, like, you have to seek that out. And it's way more comfortable to, like, not do that than it is to do that. But you're hurting people by not being intentional.
Dang.
Well,
this has been a good conversation.
This has been a great conversation. You know,
Honestly.
We talked about the moon. We talked about Vogue. We
talked about Mars.
We talked about Mars.
And a lot of Elon
You got
Musk.
really passionate about Enneagram.
I love Enneagram and Elon Musk. Those two, they just get me going in two different ways.
We're gonna ride that train. I think we need to have fun.
Go ahead and comment. What would you like to see from this podcast? We're gonna go ahead and wrap up.
Yeah.
This has been the #1 podcast on Mars. You guys are the Martians. Thank you for tuning in.
Youth Nation.
Youth Nation.